Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we're going to check in on my progress for my 2023 book hunt. If you guys have not watched the original video where I created my book hunt, I will link it down below if you want a lot of details, but essentially I created a list of 10 items or 10 tropes, themes and books that I really enjoy, and I wanted to seek out books this year that supposedly had those and see kind of if my tastes are the same, if those are things I want to continue looking for in books, or if they're different. What I'm going to do is go through each of the categories that I had selected, and I was going to talk about all of the books that I read in each category. However, I've read in all of the categories total, there are 41 books that I have listed. Some of them have multiple categories in mind, but I don't want to talk about 41 books in one video. I think that would not be great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick my favorite book for each topic. Now, it's important to note that these are not my favorite books in general. So these are not my highest rated books in each topic. They are the books that I think do the theme or have the trope the best. So they might be a 3-star book, but I think that they did some specific thing better than any other book that I've read on this list, even if those other books I rated higher. I also plan on telling you guys how many books I read in each category along with their average ratings. That way I kind of just know if this is something I want to continue with, if maybe my selection of books hasn't been great. So yeah, let's get started. The first category is Wholesome Vibes. So I have read 6 books, or I've noted 6 books that had wholesome vibes. I might be missing some because essentially what I did was I would go through about 10 books and then I would write those down in my Goodreads, and then I would go through and see if any of them fit any of the 10 categories. So I may have missed some books, but out of the 6 books I've noted that I've read this year that have wholesome vibes, the one I think that did it best is The Magician's Daughter. So this book was mentioned in my mid-year freakout tag as my favorite book of the beginning of the year. I absolutely love this book and it is absolutely wholesome, even though the storyline does have some high stakes within it. You follow Biddy, who lives on an island with a magician, and she was kind of orphaned there, and he took her in and raised her on this magical island. They live on an island that is hidden from the rest of the world, and the rest of the world no longer has magic, or the people who have access to it are very, very privileged. And one night, Biddy's magician, whose name is Rowan, leaves the island for supplies and never returns, or doesn't return, and Biddy has to figure out what to do, go after him and try and help him. Out of the 6 books that I did read with wholesome vibes, my average rating was a 4.58. So I definitely think that this is something that my heart desires in books, and I will continue to look forward to wholesome vibe books. The next theme for me is an unsettling atmosphere. So a little bit of a change from wholesome vibes. I really like it when a book creeps me out. It's just fantastic. I've read 11 books that have an unsettling atmosphere with an average rating of a 3.7. So these are a little bit more hit and miss than the wholesome vibes, but the one that I think took the cake this year, or so far this year, I should say, is Dead Silence. So I buddy read this with Leandra. I talked to you guys about this a little bit ago. This book was really fun. Think ghost ship, think Titanic in space. So you run across a broken down ship that has been missing for 20 years, and a very small crew decides to try and figure out, or go onto the ship and figure out what went wrong, and some very creepy things happen. This book was so good at tension and this very ominous, like, oh, I know stuff's gonna go down and I don't want people to go in that room, or, you know, that type of feeling. So I really think that this is a perfect representation of what I want in an unsettling atmosphere. Honorable mention for this one, I have to give a shout out to A House with Good Bones. I really did enjoy this book as well. T. Kingfisher's atmospheres and creepy books are always some of my favorites, so I just wanted to shout that one out as well. The next theme is a storytelling component of some sort. I really enjoy when books incorporate stories in history, or someone telling their own story and maybe inserting their own little tidbits. I just really enjoy I really enjoy authors playing with the aspect of storytelling within a book. So for this theme, I have read 11 books and my average rating was a 4.5. So I definitely think this is something that I do find entertaining in books. Out of all 11 books, the book that I think that did the storytelling aspect the best was The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. I always pronounce that last name wrong. I really enjoyed this book. If you haven't heard of it, it is a pirate story of a retired pirate, and she has become very, I don't want to call it safe, but she has retired and is living with her mother and her daughter and is no longer part of the pirate scene. She wants to live and have a safe place for her daughter to grow up. And something happens, a person comes in and essentially tells her that a daughter of an old friend has gotten kidnapped and asks her to go on one last adventure. And so she gets the gang back together and tries to find her friend's daughter. So the storytelling component in this book that I really enjoyed is it's almost like you're listening, well, you are listening to Amina's story, Amina's telling of what happened here, but there are also kind of myths about her that are talked about. There are stories that are also talked about within like mythology that is talked about within the book. But then my absolute favorite part about this book is there are pieces in the story where she will break the fourth wall and talk to the person that is kind of scribing her story, or he will break in and disturb what she said. And so you kind of hear this banter along with so you get to hear them having a conversation about how the story is supposed to be told or should be told. And I just really enjoyed that component. The next trope is an unreliable narrator, and I have read 5 books in this category with an average rating of a 3.25. This one definitely is another one that is hit or miss for me because depending on how the unreliable narrator is done, I can find these to be somewhat convenient and predictable in a sense, but the one that I think out of these 5 books that did it the best was The House of Salt and Sorrows. I have a vlog coming out of my experience reading through this entire book in just a little bit, but just to give you a brief synopsis, you follow a daughter of a sea kingdom, and she is the daughter of a duke of kind of islands, an island kingdom, and she has 12 sisters, or her family has 12 sisters, but some of her sisters have died and died in some of them have died in suspicious circumstances, and so a lot of people in the kingdom think she is cursed or their family is cursed, and essentially they're just waiting to see who dies next. And there's a little bit of romance involved in this, but there's also just some really creepy, this is another one that could have gone into the Unsettling Atmosphere because it definitely had that as well. But there are pieces in this story where you're not quite sure if, and the narrator is not quite sure if the information you're being given is correct. And I think that the way that added to the tension of this was just done so well, and I really enjoyed it. The next is a memory component of some sort. So I have found in the past that I do enjoy whenever you have maybe a little bit of amnesia, or something is affecting memory in some way, or maybe memories are playing a part in, maybe there's like flashbacks, anything like memory component wise, I have found that I've really enjoyed. So for this, I've read 4 books so far with memory components, and my average rating is a 3.875. The book that I think did this the best out of the 4 books is The Children on the Hill. This is another one that I've talked a lot about on my channel. This is a Frankenstein retelling where you have two timelines, one in which a grandmother is raising her grandchildren and brings home a young girl who has memory problems, cannot remember her past. And you also have the current timeline, the present day timeline, where one of the children is a monster hunter, and essentially the two worlds, the two paths collide eventually, and you figure out what happened in the past timeline to lead to the current timeline. So I will also link a couple of videos that I did specifically about this book because I have talked about this book a lot. Next is Quirky Banter. I absolutely love when a book has me rolling, and there is a specific type of awkward, quirky banter that I really enjoy. And of these, I've read 5 books with an average rating of 4.4. This honestly has to go to T. Kingfisher. Paladin's Strength is a book that I've read this year that I absolutely loved it. The theme of this book, so this is the second book in a series, so I won't tell you huge details, but you have characters in this world. You have a paladin, and then you always have a love interest, because these are fantasy romance / horror books. And you're in kind of a dark, dingy world where the paladin's god has died and they've had to deal with repercussions of that. And the female in this particular character or particular book is trying to seek some people, her family that has been lost. And you follow their journey in this very gritty, dark world where people are dying. And so you have that mystery to solve as well. The amount of jokes that went on between the two main characters and the awkward situations and the fact that they were both sarcastic, this is the quintessential book for me as far as Quirky Banter goes. Next is a theme that I had a hard time explaining in my original video, and I called this a book that was at odds with itself. And the book that I gave as a representation originally was The Graveyard Book, because it was kind of cozy, but it was set in a dark atmosphere. And I think I figured out how to describe this theme better. And it is a book that whatever you're going into it, it completely turns its, like, the expectations of the themes that are going on in the book is opposite of what you would think. So like what happens is the opposite of your expectation, I guess. That's what I mean by a book that's at odds with itself. So the book, you're going into it with certain themes and a certain storyline, and maybe the feeling of the book is completely opposite of that, or vice versa. The feeling of the book that you're getting, but then the themes that are covered in it are opposite of what those feelings would be. For these books are kind of hard to come by, and so I've read 4 of these. My average rating is a 4.25. The book that I've chosen that does this the best for the first part of the year is The Goblin Emperor. So if you've never heard me talk about this book, or if you've never heard anything about this book, you follow a goblin emperor, a half goblin whose name is Maya, and he is, I think, 5th in the line to the throne, but his father and all of his brothers die, and so he is pushed into the political realm. So this is pushed as political fantasy. It is, you are trying to figure out who killed Maya's family, why they did it, if he's in danger. He is trying to navigate the political scene and learn how to become an emperor where he has never been trained to do so. And so you would think that this book would be very serious, and there are times that it is, but it's also so cozy and almost wholesome. Like, I really enjoyed the vibes of this book. This book, the feelings that it gives you is just like sitting down with your favorite drink, with the fireplace on, and it's raining outside. Like, it's just so warm and cozy, even though you have these kind of crazy high stakes. It just kind of takes its time with it. I just absolutely love this book. The next theme is a strong female lead. This one I actually read a ton of these. I read 18 books that I consider having a strong female lead, and the average rating for this was a 4.16. This one I have to give to the famous Lady Trent. I read The Tropic of Serpents in the first half of the year and absolutely loved it. Actually, I can show you guys because I do own that one. So this is The Tropic of Serpents. So I did talk about this in my mid-year freakout tag as well. You follow Lady Trent in this series. This is the second book in the series. The first book is called The Natural History of Dragons, and Lady Trent is a woman in a time where women are supposed to stay home and not do anything dangerous, and she wants to study dragons. And so this is her memoirs. So right now, like, in present day, she is an older woman who is now a renowned scientist and known for studying dragons, and she is writing her memoirs and telling you how she got to that point. This is an absolutely fabulous series. this one fit into a whole bunch of these categories. It is wholesome. It is found family vibes, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. It has a strong female lead like this one. It has a storytelling component as far as like she's telling her own story. This series is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't given it a try and it sounds good to you, please pick it up. The next theme is a unique format for books. So I enjoy books that are a little tricky in what they do. So this could be using different tenses for different characters, or tenses that I'm not used to, or footnotes, or mixed media, all of those different types of things that I'm considering here. So for this one, I read 6 books with an average rating of 4.08. And for the book that I think did this the best out of the list that I have was The Discord of Gods. I have to give it up to the Chorus of Dragons series. So the first book in this series is Ruin of Kings. And this book, The Discord of Gods, is the 5th in the book, the 5th and final book. And if you haven't heard about this series, it is absolutely massive. You follow a cast of characters, multiple POVs, but throughout each of the books, you have footnotes of someone who is reading the story along with you and telling you what they believe to be true. So like as you're reading the story, there will be a footnote and they're like, I don't believe that that's actually accurate. And they will change what has been written in the story with what they believe to be true. And I just have found the formatting of these books to be really intricate and really interesting. They are very dense. Being that I don't want to give you a ton about the 5th book, the first book you follow Kieran, and he is in prison. You know that he burned down a city. You know that at the very starting page 1, and you're not sure why. And so he is imprisoned and he is being interrogated by someone, and you are listening to them tell the story back and forth. So once again, this has a storytelling component as well. But yes, I really enjoyed this series, and the fact that those little footnotes, this was my first experience, I think, with footnotes that I've really enjoyed. And so it kind of got me on a kick of that. This series, not this book, but yeah. Last is Found Family, which is one that I've talked about recently. I have read 13 books in this category, and my average rating was a 4.46. So this is definitely a trope that I enjoy. Any book that has found family, I typically will like it. So I don't necessarily know that this is something I'm going to hunt for next year, because I absolutely know that I love it and I don't think I need to test that out anymore. But if you want a couple of recommendations for this, I did talk about Ragged Company in my last video where I said if you like this trope, you like this book. So I'm not going to talk about it here. I'll link that video down below so you guys can watch that. This is a contemporary book about 4 homeless individuals who go to the theater to get out of the cold. So that's all I'll say. If you want more about it, you can go and watch that other video. The book on this list that I think did this the best, other than Ragged Company, is The Athena Club. So I actually read, I think I did immersive reading on both of these, the last 2 books in the Athena Club series, the first half of the year. And so the first book, oh no, I'm not going to remember what the first book is called. I'll put them up on the screen so you guys can see them. They have beautiful covers too, so it'll be a little pretty array. But if you've never heard me talk about the Athena Club, you follow a cast of women who are from classic fantasy / horror / sci-fi, essentially famous stories from history that did not get their own story within those. So for instance, you follow the daughter of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Actually, you follow 2 of their daughters. You also follow Catherine Moreau. It's the daughter of Dr. Moreau. And you follow Justine Frankenstein. And so all of these women are in this world where they are put in very bad circumstances and have to figure out how to live together. There's also mysteries to solve in these. You do run across Sherlock Holmes in this as well. He's definitely a side character. The women are definitely the main characters, but they come together and band together to solve these mysteries and help each other out in kind of a crazy world. And I just have really enjoyed, or I really enjoyed the series. I'm done with it now. I've really enjoyed the found family aspect of this, these women caring for one another and learning about each other. And they also have in this unique formatting, the women bicker because one of them is writing the stories, writing their mysteries and how they solve them. And you get to hear the women in the background arguing on how they think certain things should be done. And you also have the storytelling component where they're writing their own story. So I think you get it, all of these themes that I have throughout. So if you haven't ever picked up this book and it sounds interesting, or this series and it sounds interesting to you, please definitely give this a try. This is another one that's also Wholesome Vibes. It's just a lovely series and I think everyone should read it. That is my 10 themes that I've been looking for this year. I have found a book in every category, which was my goal. So I've met my goal. I will continue looking for these and seeing what my average theme or average rating is for each to figure out whether or not I want to continue with these or not. And I might do an update at the end of the year to figure out like what my favorite book is for each category for the entire year, but we will see. So if you guys have any recommendations for any of these categories, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm always looking for recommendations that have these themes because these are things that I tend to enjoy. So yeah, I would love to chat with you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.